Hey everybody, welcome to another video. My name's Kris from Amerikos.com, where we help you level up and show the world the best version of yourself. And in today's video, we're going to talk about 10 phrases that you're probably using incorrectly because even native speakers use them incorrectly too. It doesn't matter if English is your first language, your second language, your third language, or your 27th language. These phrases can be very confusing. They kind of sound like one thing, but really they're supposed to be written and said in another way. And that's why so many people make mistakes with them. But I hope that after I explain the correct phrases, you'll remember them for a very long time and you won't be one of the very many people who usually make mistakes with these phrases. The first phrase that so many people make mistakes with is the phrase, I couldn't care less. Yes, this is the correct way to say it. I couldn't care less. Many people say, I could care less, and that's not right. Because when you say, I could care less, it means that you really do care. But when you say you couldn't care less, it means you don't care. So what does it mean to care about something? It means to think that something is important. And when you say I couldn't care less, it means I have a very low opinion about something, or it's not important to me at all. I don't care about that. And if I couldn't care less about that, it means I really don't care about that. In fact, there's no way that I could think it's less important. I couldn't care less. But be careful not to confuse this with the word careless. The word careless means that we do something without thinking or with mistakes. For example, we can say, Mike carelessly opened the door and hit John in the head. It means that Mike didn't think about what he was doing before he opened the door, and when he did that, he made a mistake of hitting John in the head with the door. This was very careless, or we can say that Mike was very careless when he did this. And notice the intonation of this word. Mike was very careless. But in the phrase, I couldn't care less, we stress the last word, less, and it's two different words. It's I couldn't care less. But in the example with Mike opening the door, we said Mike was very careless. And it's one word. Another example is maybe I invited Mike to my party, but it's not really important to me if Mike comes or he doesn't come. And Mike says, oh, I don't know if I'll come to your party. And I can say, I don't care if you come to my party or not. It means I don't think it's important. But I could also say, I couldn't care less if you come to my party. This would be the correct phrase to use. It would not be correct if I said, I could care less if you come to my party. That's not correct because that means I do care. It means I do think it's important, but I could think it's a little less important, which doesn't really make sense. The second phrase that a lot of people make mistakes with, even native speakers, is the phrase for all intents and purposes. And a lot of times native speakers will mess this up and they'll say for all intensive purposes, which is not correct. Now, this phrase is a little higher level, and what it really means is that something is more or less true. We could say, for all intents and purposes, this computer is brand new. It's completely new, and what I'm really saying is that even though you might think it's not new, by all standards, it is new. And maybe the packaging is open, maybe the box is open for this computer, and I can say, yes, the box is open, but for all intents and purposes, this computer is 100% new. But again, many native speakers will mess up this phrase and say the wrong one. They might say, for all intensive purposes, or they might write this phrase the wrong way. And the correct phrase is, for all intents and purposes. And what are intents and purposes? Intent is something that you think about doing, or something that you want to do. This is your intention. And measuring the intent of a person is something that's really important in marketing and business. For example, if you go to Google and you search for something, then maybe you intend on buying something. Maybe you have the idea in your head that you want to buy something, and you're trying to find the best thing to buy. Then you have purchase intent or buying intent. You have the intent to buy. This is what you want to do or what you're trying to do. If you just go to Google and you search for cat pictures, then you probably don't have any intent on buying something right now, unless you're buying pictures of cats. Meow. The third phrase that a lot of people make mistakes with, especially native speakers, is the phrase, I ain't got no. And this is a mistake. We don't use the word ain't in proper, correct English. Maybe you've heard the word ain't before, and yes, a lot of American English speakers use the word ain't. But instead, the correct phrase is, I don't have any. So sometimes a native speaker might say, I ain't got no, but it's correct to say, I don't have any. For example, they might say, I ain't got no money. But they should say, I don't have any money. My teachers at school used to tell me that the word ain't in the dictionary, which is funny because they use this incorrect word to tell me that it's incorrect. The word ain't really is a replacement for the verb to be. Anytime we want to use the verb to be in the present tense in a negative context, we could use ain't in spoken English in many areas. So for example, if someone says, hey Mike, I can say, I ain't Mike, I'm Kris. This means I am not Mike, I am Kris. Or someone can say, hey, where's Mike? I can say, I don't know, but he ain't here. This means I don't know, but he isn't here. We can also use the word ain't to replace have and has in the present perfect tense. For example, someone can say, do you like Paris? And I can say, I ain't been to Paris. This means I haven't been to Paris. Remember that using ain't is a very conversational word and it's not completely correct. So some people might think that you sound uneducated when you use this word in your speech. It's a good word for you to know, but probably not a good word for you to use. The next phrase that a lot of people make mistakes with is the phrase between you and I. For some reason, a lot of native speakers at school learned that you always say you and I, you always say the other person before I. But the thing that a lot of teachers didn't teach or students forgot from school is that there are subject pronouns and there are object pronouns. So the phrase, this is between you and I, is actually not correct. It's more correct to say, this is between you and me, because you and me are object pronouns and you and I are subject pronouns. What's the difference? A subject pronoun is the subject of the sentence. It's the person or thing that does the action of the sentence. Whereas an object pronoun is receiving the action of the sentence from the subject. So we can say, this is between you and me. So this is the subject of the sentence. This is. And that's where we can see the subject and the verb. But after that, we say that this thing is where? It's between you and me. Another example is if I say that I am speaking to you, then I am the subject and you are the object. I'm doing the action, I am speaking to you and sending this action to you. The word you is the object of the sentence. But if we turn it around and you are the person speaking, then we can say you are speaking to me. We don't say you are speaking to I, because I is a subject pronoun. You is the subject of this sentence, so you are speaking, but the action is going to me. So me is the object pronoun that we need to use in this sentence. The phrase between you and me is also a special phrase that sometimes we use to tell someone that this is secret information, or this is information that I'm not telling everyone. For example, we could say, between you and me, I think Mike doesn't like my YouTube videos. We can also use this phrase just to say that something affects two people. For example, we could say, it's between you and me whether we go to the cinema or not. This means you and I must make the decision. You see, we can use the phrase you and I if it's the subject of the sentence, but if it's the object, we have to say you and me. Another phrase that native speakers get wrong all the time, and therefore a lot of non-native speakers copying how native speakers speak get it wrong too, is the phrase lying in bed. Instead of using this correct phrase, a lot of native speakers will say, I'm laying in bed, not I'm lying in bed. I think this is because many people associate lying with another meaning of the word, which is to say something that isn't true. But you can say that you are lying in bed, and this talks about the position that you have in the bed. You're not standing, you're not sitting, you're lying in the bed. I guess you could also be saying something that's not true, and while you're lying in the bed, you're also lying in the bed. And that could be confusing. That's probably why so many native speakers say laying in the bed instead. So what's the difference between the verbs to lay and to lie? To lie is something that you do to yourself. If we say lie down instead of lay down, another mistake that a lot of native speakers make, then we're clearly talking about the position that your body should be in. Lying, in the lying position. Not sitting, not standing. But when we use the verb to lay or to lay something down, it must have an object. We lay something down, whereas we cannot lie something down. So we might say, lay the book down on my desk. This means put the book on my desk in the lying position. And this means that technically the difference between these two verbs is that one is a transitive verb and one is an intransitive verb. A transitive verb is a verb that can take an object or must take an object. And an intransitive verb is a verb that cannot take an object. So the verb to lay something down is a transitive verb. It transitions the action from the subject to the object. But the verb to lie down is an intransitive verb. The subject does this to itself. The next phrase that a lot of people make mistakes with, including native speakers, is the phrase fewer people. That's correct to say. It's not correct to say less people. So we might say, there are fewer people at this party than I expected. That's correct. But many native speakers and other people around the world who are learning English might say instead, there are less people at this party than I expected. So why is that incorrect? Well, we use the word less about uncountable nouns, and we use the word fewer about countable nouns. So we can say there are fewer people because we can count people. One person, two people, three people, four people, five people. We can count that. But if we talk about money, we don't usually say one money, two monies, three monies. No, the word money is uncountable. So we can say I have less money than Mike, and we cannot say I have fewer monies. Another reason why so many people make mistakes with this phrase is because of the word people. The word people is countable, but it just has an irregular plural form, people. The singular form is person, so it changes from person to people, and that can be really confusing for people who are learning English as a foreign or second language. The seventh phrase that a lot of people make mistakes with is the phrase to nip something in the bud. This is the correct way to say it, to nip something in the bud. But sometimes people make a mistake and they say that they need to nip something in the butt, and that's not right, and actually quite funny. This phrase is an English idiom, and it has a special meaning. It means that you need to stop something, end something, or fix something before it becomes a bigger problem. For example, we could say our business is spending too much money and we need to nip it in the bud before we go bankrupt. So it means that we need to solve this problem so it doesn't become worse and the business goes bankrupt or loses all of its money. Or if you're sick with a cold, then you need to take medicine as soon as possible. You need to nip it in the bud so that you don't get sicker. Probably the reason some people get confused with this phrase is because the word butt kind of makes more sense than the word bud. I mean, if you kick someone's butt, it means that you beat them or you hurt them, and it means that you probably won in a fight or in a game. But this idiom is different. It's nip something in the bud. And if you make a mistake with this phrase, then it will be very funny to many people because the word butt and the word bud are very different. The word butt is a part of your body, the part of your body that you sit on. You might know another word for that part of the body, but that word is probably very rude. This word is used much more frequently and it's not as rude. But if you've never heard this phrase before, remember that the correct way to say it is nip something in the bud. Great. So now I've taught you those phrases, and I hope that any misunderstandings or any mistakes that you used to say have been nipped in the bud right now. Before we nip the next common mistake in the bud, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you get more videos just like this and you can perfect your English. The next phrase is, it's a dog-eat-dog world. That's the right way to say it. Dog, eat, dog. Not, it's a doggy-dog world, which some native speakers might make a mistake and say. This phrase means that the world is a difficult place and that people fight each other and hurt each other. A dog eats another dog. It's a dog-eat-dog world. But when someone says it very quickly, you might not hear all of those sounds so clearly. It might sound more like, it's a dog-eat-dog world. And that's probably why so many people get confused. Someone might tell you, it's a dog-eat-dog world, so you have to be strong to survive. This means the world is a difficult place, and you have to be strong. And probably people get confused with this because dog-eat-dog is not a standard way to make a phrase in English. But the phrase doggy-dog sounds like something that a child might say. Because doggy is a child's way to say the word dog. It adds the E ending, which makes it nice and small. Oh, mommy, look at that doggy. Whereas if you're an adult, you don't say, I have a doggy, you say, I have a dog. So for some people, it might sound like it's a doggy-dog world, but that sounds very strange. It sounds like you're saying it's a world for children or something like that. It's a dog-eat-dog world is correct, and it sounds much more aggressive, which is exactly what this phrase is about. The ninth phrase that a lot of people make mistakes with actually isn't a phrase, it's just one word. Sometimes people will say the word irregardless, and that's not correct. It's correct to say regardless. That's right. Sometimes people add an extra prefix to this word to try to make it negative. Like if we say someone is responsible, we can make this negative by saying that they are irresponsible. Irresponsible means not responsible. But in this case, we can't add that negative prefix. And this isn't an adjective, it's an adverb. So maybe I invite my friend Mike to go to the party with me. Hey Mike, do you want to come to this party with me? He says, I don't know, I don't really want to. Are you going? And I can say, yes, I'm going to the party regardless of whether you come with me or not. The word regardless means it doesn't matter, or without any regard to the circumstances or situation. So I will go to the party without regard of you going to the party or not. Sometimes native speakers will just throw the word regardless into a sentence to mean that whatever was just said doesn't really matter. Here's the thing that I'm going to do. For example, I might say, sometimes 1,000 people watch my videos, sometimes 10,000 people watch my videos. Regardless, I'm going to keep making videos. So this means it doesn't matter how many people watch, I will keep making them. Okay, the 10th and final phrase that a lot of people make mistakes with that we're going to talk about in this video is actually 3 different phrases, but they're all very similar. They're the phrases should've, could've, and would've. And yes, a lot of times native speakers will say them like this, and sometimes they will even write them like this too, which is a mistake because it should be should have, could have, and would have. Now, when a person is speaking and it sounds like should've, could've, and would've, that's okay, because that's the pronunciation, that's the accent, that's how some people say these words, and that's okay, that's not a mistake. But when they write them with the word of instead of the word have, that's a mistake. In fact, many people won't even pronounce of. They might just say like shoulda, coulda, woulda. And when we put these 3 phrases together, it makes a special phrase that's an idiom. Should've, could've, would've, or shoulda, coulda, woulda means that you had the chance to do something, but you didn't do it, and now that chance is gone. So maybe Mike tells me, Kris, I really should have gone to university because now I would have a better job. And I tell Mike, I agree, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And this means, yes, you had that opportunity and you didn't take it, and now it's gone and you can't do anything about that. Now you might be thinking, well, Kris, why do we say should have could have, and would have. And I'll tell you right now, this is the past form of these modal verbs. The word should is only present tense. So if you want to say something in the past with should, you need to use should have. So you might say, we should go to the cinema and watch this film. That's present tense. That's about now or today. But if we talk about yesterday, we should have gone to the cinema and we should have watched that film. We need to use should have if we're talking about the past. Mike might tell me, I should have studied harder for that test. And I'll tell him, yeah, you should have. Or I can say, should have, could have, would have. And you know what you should do right now? You should press like on this video. You should subscribe to this channel and make sure that you click that bell button, because then you'll be notified when new videos come out and you'll be notified when we go live so that you can get speaking practice with us. By the way, we have a speaking practice program where you can practice speaking with me, native speakers, teachers who are professionals and certified in teaching English, and students from around the world every day, 3, 4, 5 times every day, as much as you want, and all you have to do is click the link under this video to get started. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.